Hey there, self-care warriors. Welcome back to Self-Care Haven. Today I wanted to do the part 3 of Narcissists Use Diversion Tactics to Silence You series. And today I'm going to be talking to you about a couple of the tactics that I've noticed that narcissists use, and this can also happen on a societal level, as I talked about in my previous videos in the series. And the first tactic that I want to talk about is the irrelevant question. The irrelevant question is when a narcissist in an abusive relationship asks a question that completely goes off tangent. It's meant deliberately to redirect you, get you off track, so that you don't have to address the issue that is being brought up, and you can evade a responsibility and you can circumvent taking accountability for your actions. So they do this as a way to undermine your credibility, demean your right to have a different opinion or belief or a value system that conflicts with their extreme sense of entitlement and superiority. And they do this all the time. If you question them, if you challenge them, and you threaten that fragile ego, it will turn into this sort of narcissistic rage, that sort of narcissistic injury where they have to defend themselves, or they feel like they need to defend themselves in order to maintain that sense of entitlement and grandeur. So what they basically do is they ask an irrelevant question. They pose a question that has nothing to do with the topic at hand in order to get you off track. And by redirecting you from that issue that you're bringing up, and you have every right to bring up, they're able to covertly invalidate your right to have an opinion and to have a belief system that differs from them. And of course, their belief system is extremely skewed because in their belief system, they're the center of the universe and only they are correct. So any valid points that you might be bringing up, any sorts of emotions that were legitimately triggered by them, they will fail to address it. They will not validate your valid points. It doesn't matter how valid your opinions are, it doesn't matter how valid your emotions are, they will continually try to undermine the validity of your emotions by simply not even addressing the actual issue at hand. They will continually redirect that conversation. And this happens on a societal level and political level as well. I mean, you have politicians and change makers who are always evading accountability. They're always changing the conversation to a different topic that has nothing to do with the issue at hand. And they're doing this by not even addressing the valid points that the people who are challenging the status quo are bringing up. Now remember, narcissists love to maintain the status quo. They're really good at maintaining the status quo, and if you happen to be a person who challenges that status quo, challenges that normative discourse, they're going to be very threatened by it. So the only way that they know how to divert from that is to detract from your credibility and undermine your argument by not even having the argument at all in the first place. Another popular way that they do this is actually to misinterpret what you're saying deliberately and regurgitate it in a way that sounds extremely absurd. So they will try to reframe your argument and butcher your argument and slaughter your argument and remodel it so that it sounds extremely absurd. For example, let's say that you were humiliated in public by a narcissistic abuser, right? You might bring up that issue to the narcissistic abuser saying, you really humiliated me, when you said this thing or you did that thing, you really humiliated me, and these are my feelings, these are my thoughts. And the narcissistic abuser will be like, oh, I humiliated you? Why? And you might respond with, well, those people were probably thinking that when you told me this, that you were demeaning me, and I think you were. And then the narcissistic abuser might say, oh, so you can read minds now, huh? That's the irrelevant question, and it's also the misinterpretation, the deliberate misinterpretation of your emotions that are being expressed. And it doesn't address the real issue. A healthy partner would say, oh, you felt humiliated? I didn't know. Well, what did I do to humiliate you? And they would follow up, and they would be interested in why you were feeling this way. The narcissist is not interested in what you're feeling because most of the time they manufacture those emotions anyways. They create those conflicts in order to make you feel degraded and demeaned. So by deliberately misinterpreting and deliberately misrepresenting your argument in the first place and asking that irrelevant question, they're doing both at once in this example, what they're able to do is redirect that conversation, silence you, shame you, and maintain the status quo all at once. Another diversion tactic that they use is nitpicking, and this is also irrelevant. It tends to fall on the irrelevant extreme side. So I'm not talking about people who are constructively criticizing you, hoping to help you in some way, or doing you a favor by picking out something that might help you to improve. I'm talking about nitpickers, people who are extremely narcissistic, incredibly envious of you, and they nitpick on anything they can find their hands on. So even if you, for example, complete a project or did something successful, they will find a way to slither in and ask a question that basically detracts from your overall success. And they do this by asking another type of irrelevant question that points out something that you did not do right with the project or something that you lack. So, for example, if you got and this is just an example that I'm pulling out of thin air, but let's say that you got an A on an exam. Maybe a narcissistic parent will ask you, oh, you got an A on this exam? What about that other exam from the last week? Or what about this subject that you're not as good at? So they will try to turn the focus from your success into a previous or present failure or something that you lack. They might also create a sense of lack by pointing that out and undermining your credibility in some way, or undermining the value of your work in some way. Now, this is done deliberately. It's done to nitpick on your success so that you can't truly feel proud of yourself, because narcissists can't stand when someone is feeling so great about themselves and feeling so tapped into their own power and are generating so much of their own energy, because narcissists can't generate any of their own energy. So they have to pick on others who do generate their own energy and create valuable things for the world. So there you have it. There's some 3 diversion tactics that narcissists use. I want to hear more from you. What sort of contexts and ways have you encountered these tactics, both in a narcissistically abusive relationship as well as in society as a whole? Because not only do narcissists do this, but I think that people who are trying to evade accountability in general do this, and they tend to engage in these diversion tactics. But I think in the realm of intimate relationships especially, a narcissistic abuser will do everything in their power to maintain the status quo. And the status quo is basically them having all the power and control in the relationship and being able to exercise their extreme sense of entitlement and grandeur and sense of superiority, which is obviously false. On a societal level, people do this as well in order to maintain the status quo because they benefit from the status quo. So can you think of examples from your own life where you tried to challenge the status quo, whether it was in an intimate relationship or whether you were fighting against injustice on a societal level? And what did that other person, whether they were a narcissist or not, try to do to undermine you and covertly put you down, nitpick you, ask that irrelevant question, distract you from the real argument, regurgitate your argument in a way that was absurd, as a way to derail the conversation so that the discourse can't be changed and the status quo won't be changed so that it continues to benefit them. Can you think of those examples? And if you do have examples, please share them with me and other survivors below in the comments section. I'm pretty sure I'll be continuing this series because I feel like there's an endless list of diversion tactics that narcissists use, and even non-narcissists sometimes when they evade accountability and do not take responsibility for their actions, or they have an investment in this current status quo that they don't want changed. So I hope to continue this series, and I'll talk to you guys very soon. Until then, take care.